Hi, this is Karin from the Huntley Library, and today we're going to be baking. We're going to be making chocolate snowball cookies. So I found this recipe on Pinterest, and the author is Dorothy Kern. This is one of maybe 7 new recipes that I tried this past December when I decided I needed to make some cookies for my coworkers, and it was one of my favorites. So these are all of the ingredients that you're going to need. You'll have a cup of butter, softened. You can use salted or unsalted butter. Half a cup of powdered sugar, a 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 2 1/4 cups of flour, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 3/4 cup of mini chocolate chips, and additional powdered sugar for rolling. So 1 to 1 1/2 cups of powdered sugar in addition to this 1/2 cup. I used way more chocolate than is in this recipe, and I will give you some substitutions and ideas for that when we get to the part where we add the chocolate. So let's get our ingredients together and we can get started. Step 1. Preheat your oven to 375. You will note that I have preheated my oven to 375. I also took out a cookie sheet. You might need 2 or 3 even, depending on how large you make your cookies. And my oven takes a long time to warm up, so getting it started beforehand while I'm mixing all the ingredients together is a good idea. If your oven is similarly slow, you'll probably want to start it up at this point too. So our first ingredient is butter, and we are going to need 2 sticks of butter to make a cup of butter. And you can see on the side of the butter that it's labeled how many tablespoons equal a 1/4 cup. It says 4 tablespoons per 1/4 cup, so we have 8 tablespoons in 1 stick. That's 1/2 cup, and then we're going to need 2 sticks of butter to make a full cup. So I have already gotten our butter here. This butter has been sitting out for a couple hours in my kitchen, and it's about 80 degrees in here, so it's room temperature and very much softened. If your house is not as warm, you might need to soften your butter for a little while in the microwave. Maybe try 30 seconds and see how soft it is. And you can cut it up into smaller pieces if it's real cold from being in the refrigerator, just to make it heat up a little bit faster. Mine looks good to go though, so we're ready to add our second ingredient. That's 1/2 cup of powdered sugar, and I pre-measured that, so here's our powdered sugar, and I'm just going to put that in there with the butter. And then we also need a 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, and you can use whatever brand you like. That was also pre-measured. And we're also going to put in a teaspoon of vanilla. I have this fancy Mexican vanilla extract that I like a lot, and I'm on to probably my last tablespoon or last teaspoon, so I'll have to order some more. This is my teaspoon measure. You need that? Teaspoon. Yep, that really is the last teaspoon. Okay, and we'll let that go into the bowl too. And I have an electric hand mixer, which I'm going to use to mix this up. If you have a tabletop one, you can use one of those too. That'll work just as well. And if you don't have a mixer at all, you can mix this by hand. It'll just take longer and it'll be a little bit more difficult for you. So we're going to mix this until it's fluffy. And I'm going to start off at a low speed so that we don't have powdered sugar and cocoa powder flying everywhere, which is highly likely when you're dealing with really finely ground ingredients, powdered. that looks pretty good. It's kind of the consistency of frosting here, but it's pretty light and fluffy. So we are ready to move on to step 3. For step 3, we're going to add flour and salt to our wet ingredients and just mix that until the dough comes together. This is a really dry dough. In the last few times that I've made it, it's taken a while for the dough to come together. If you feel that it's too dry and you've been working with it for a while, you can add a little bit of vegetable oil to get some extra moisture in there. But we'll see how this one does. It's pretty humid today, so it might come together nicely for us. Okay, so here's our wet ingredients, and here we have the flour. If you have a small bowl like I do, you can put in about half of the flour and mix that in first, and then add the rest of it and mix it in after you've got this already incorporated into your batter. I'm going to put the salt in too, just have regular table salt. If you have something else that you prefer to use, you can do that. So that's a teaspoon of salt. Okay, and we're going to start mixing this. Again, use a low setting to start with so that your flour doesn't spray everywhere. That was about half of the flour, so we're going to add the other half now. Low setting. Mix, mix, mix. This is definitely coming together faster than it has in the past, and I'm guessing that the humidity has a lot to do with it. Because sometimes it just barely sticks together. Okay. So we are looking pretty good here. Oops. Some of it's kind of sticking to my mixer, so I'm just going to press that out of there. You can see that it's still a relatively dry batter. This recipe doesn't call for any milk or eggs or anything, so if you wanted to use just vegetable oil instead of the butter as a replacement, you could probably do that pretty easily and then make it vegan that way, if you don't want to use animal products. Alright. Yep, and our dough is very easy to work with, and it's not sticking to my hands too much. So we are ready to add our chocolate pieces. We are ready to stir in our chocolate pieces. The recipe calls for 3/4 cup of mini chocolate chips. I do not have mini chocolate chips right now, but I do have mini M&Ms, and this is probably about 3/4 of a cup here in this little bowl, which I don't feel is enough chocolate for all of this cookie dough. So I'm going to add other things to it. You could also use regular sized M&Ms, which can be stirred in. Chocolate chips. This is my favorite kind. The 60% cacao. Very delicious. And traditional Snowball cookies often have a Hershey Kiss in the center, which is nice and melty and chocolatey. So you could just form your cookie balls around a Hershey Kiss. My favorite way was with the miniature M&Ms. So I'm going to use a combination of different things and show you how to do all of those. We are going to go off recipe now and not stir in the chocolate pieces, or that's what I'm going to do. If you would like to stir in your chocolate pieces, you go ahead and do that. I'm going to form my cookie balls around my different kinds of chocolate. So, step 5, form your cookies around chocolate pieces. You're going to want to make them, if you're doing it this way, about 1 inch in diameter. So, if you are using Hershey Kisses, you'll want to unwrap those. So there are a couple that I've unwrapped already. You don't want to have foil or paper in these cookies. It will not make them more delicious, I promise you. And I like to have my baking sheets ready to put these on as I'm making them so that I don't have to wash my hands a lot in between moving the cookies to the tray. It can just be sort of an assembly line. Okay, so we've got some Hershey Kisses ready, and we've got some miniature M&Ms, and we've got our batter. There's that. And let me grab our cookie sheet. It's waiting over on top of the oven. Okay. So I'm going to take about this much batter or dough, and then for the Hershey Kisses I just kind of stab it in the bottom and then wrap it around. And you want enough batter around it so that it covers all of the chocolate and you don't have any pieces sticking out. So this is about 1 inch in diameter, and then you can put that on your cookie sheet. Then get a little bit more dough, and we'll do the same thing. These do not spread or rise or anything. They kind of keep the same shape, and they might puff up just a little bit, so you don't have to worry about them running into each other on your cookie sheet. I just put them a couple inches apart, but I've had no problems with the dough running together and sticking to other cookies when they bake. I like them to be round, so I'll roll them all. And you can get probably at least 12 cookies on this cookie sheet, maybe a few more if you, a little bit too much batter there, maybe a few more than 12 if you cram them together. Okay, and if you're using the miniature M&Ms, I take a little handful of those and then also a little handful of the batter, and then stick them all together. And you just want to make sure that those are stuck into the batter so they don't fall onto the cookie sheet and bake into it instead. When you have the chocolate pieces on the outside like this, sometimes they do stick to the cookie sheet, so you can save yourself some cleanup time if you want to put a piece of parchment down and line the sheet. These do not stick as much, they should come right off. These might stick a little bit depending on how melty your chocolate pieces get. I was able to just use a spatula to get them off, so I'm not going to worry about parchment. We'll do another M&M one. Whoops. My M&Ms are flying. So you can see I like chocolate a lot. So if you're like me, then you can put as much chocolate in these as you want. Probably need more batter than chocolate pieces though. And we're going to be rolling these in powdered sugar after they come out of the oven too, so there'll be just a little bit more sweetness. That seems pretty good. So I'm going to pause and get the rest of these set up, and then we'll stick them in the oven. Alright, our cookies are ready to go. This is just one cookie sheet full. I still have quite a bit of batter left, so I probably have enough to fill a couple more cookie sheets. This is the only nice cookie sheet I have. The rest of them are going to go on a couple of old pizza pans that I have. If you only have one cookie sheet, then that's fine. You'll just want to bake these first, and then you'll take them out of the oven, let them cool, roll them in sugar, and then you'll use this cookie sheet again to put your next batch in. If you have additional cookie sheets, you can start filling those up while this one is baking. That's what I am going to do. So here is our step 6. We're going to bake these cookies for 7 to 10 minutes until the bottoms are slightly brown and the tops are no longer glossy. So you'll notice that our cookies are already brown, so it might be difficult, and also they're sitting on their bottoms, so it might be difficult to tell just by looking if the bottoms are browner than they already were. So the key is probably to check the tops and make sure that they are no longer glossy. I found that 7 to 10 minutes was not long enough, even for these cookies, which are smaller than what the actual recipe calls for. So it takes my batches about 12 minutes to cook all the way through. So what you'll want to do is start off conservatively and start with 7 minutes and see how your cookies are doing at that point. And if it looks like they need more time, then put them in for a couple more minutes and see. But once they start looking dull on the top, not shiny anymore, then you'll know that that's the time to start taking them out. And if you want to check the bottoms, you can always use a spatula and just scooch one of your cookies over and lift it up a little bit so that you can see underneath it and see whether that bottom is crispy and becoming browner than it is already. So we're going to stick these in the oven and get started on the rest of them. I just took the cookies out of the oven. So these are the ones that just came out right here. And then these are the ones that still have to go in. I don't know if you can see the difference. These are definitely less shiny on the top than these are, and they did expand a little bit, so you can see that they're a little bit bigger than they were when they went in. And if you look at the bottom, you can see that the chocolate too has kind of melted onto the cookie tray a little bit. Step 7. Remove cookies from oven and allow them to cool for 5 to 10 minutes. So our cookies have been out of the oven for about 10 minutes now, and they are ready to get rolled in powdered sugar. So this is our bowl of powdered sugar. You remember we needed some additional powdered sugar for the last part of this process. So we have step 8, roll in powdered sugar. And these are cool enough to touch now. So you're just going to stick them in the bowl here and roll them around and get them coated pretty well with the powdered sugar. And then they can go back on the cookie sheet, unless you need that again for your next batch. Mine are my other batch is in the oven, so I can get these rolled in sugar while they are baking. And if it looks like there's not enough sugar, after you roll them once it doesn't look like there's enough sugar on there, you can roll them a second time. Depends on how much powdered sugar you like coating your cookies. You're going to do this for all of them. Okay, now I have too much sugar on my hands to turn off the camera to pause. Okay, I'll do one more. This is our last one. And then we'll pause and wait for the others to come out of the oven. So you might have some downtime while you're baking, while you're waiting for cookies to come out of the oven. And if so, you can get a jump start on cleaning up all of the bowls and measuring cups and spoons that you used and your mixer while your cookies are baking, and then you won't have to do that later on when you are enjoying them. You can also put away any ingredients that you used that you don't need anymore, and everything will be nice and tidy when you are ready to put those cookies in your mouth. Step 9, eat cookies. So all of the cookies are rolled in the powdered sugar, and I'm going to eat one cookie. but I am bringing the rest of these to a gathering that I'm having later this week, so somebody else is going to get to enjoy them too. If you are saving your cookies for later and you're not going to eat them all right away, you can put them in a container. You can freeze them for over a week if you need to. You can also just put them in the refrigerator, or if you want to put them in a plastic bag, they will keep for several days just on your counter. They are delicious. I highly recommend that you bake these. I forgot to tell you that my adaptation of this recipe made 39 cookies, so hopefully yours will yield similar results. And here's the obligatory, I'm really enjoying this cookie shot. Mmm. Now I won't be able to talk for a while. So I hope you enjoyed cooking with me today, baking with me, and I hope that you made these cookies along with me so that you can enjoy them too. For more craft ideas and fun events at the Huntley Library, please check out our website at www.huntleylibrary.org. See you later.